What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another Bros Talking Soccer podcast. My name is Dave Knittel, and on today's podcast, I am joined by Alex Shuptar from Sofive Soccer Centers. Alex, hello.
Hey, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Hey, sorry, one sec. I always forget to mute my YouTube, so I had an echo in my head, but now we are good. Nothing from your end. If you're joining us live on YouTube, please feel free, interact with us as we go along here. If you have any questions for Alex, shoot them. I will be happy to ask. And, we're going to talk about Alex a little bit, his fandom. We're going to talk about Sofive Soccer Centers, and we're just going to get right into it. Alex, any last questions?
Nope, all set.
All right, let's do it. I'd like to welcome on Alex Shuptar from Sofive Soccer Centers. Alex, welcome to Bros Talking Soccer. How you doing today?
Great, Dave. Thanks so much for having me.
Of course, we're happy to have you. So I always like to start off by getting to know our guests a little bit more. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and kind of how you got into the sport of soccer?
Absolutely. So I am a native of Philadelphia. And really, I got exposed to soccer, I think, the way that, many Americans are introduced to the game and through sports, I guess, generally playing at school through recess and at my local YMCA and rec center. But I'd say probably the biggest impetus for me was at the school I was attending and went to growing up through, they had one of the best high school programs in the country at the time and had won something like 7 or 8 consecutive league titles in the Inter-Academic League, the Inter-Ac, which at the time and even throughout, my time in high school was producing some of the really big players in the country, with schools like Haverford and Penn Charter and Chestnut Academy, which is where I went. But growing up, I really looked up to those guys, and I would go to their practices, I would go to their games, and this really also happened to coincide with the '94 World Cup, and from there, I just really fell in love with the game, and began taking club soccer more seriously, and it just became a major part of who I was and my identity. And from there, I attended Franklin and Marshall College. I played there for 4 years. And I spent some time coaching in college at Haverford College after that, as well as coaching in the youth games. So I like to think that I have a pretty good, I guess, understanding and basis of soccer in the country, at least from the youth perspective. And I still like to play a lot myself when I can, and I try to watch as much as I can as well. From there, I've made this transition into Sofive Soccer Center, where I'm now running one of the area's top providers of indoor and outdoor soccer.
I love it. So let's go back to playing career and maybe a little bit of coaching. So while you were playing, what position did you play? What type of player, compare yourself to like a modern player so you can get a frame of reference?
Messy.
Yeah. Tearing it up out there.
Yeah. No, so I was, it's funny and something you see a lot in youth now is, I grew up and I played, I was a forward and a midfielder throughout most of my my early childhood, and then I had that growth spurt and was a little bit less mobile. And when I got to college, the coach said within the first week that you're going to be a center back. So I made the transition from scoring goals to trying to prevent them, and that's really what I played throughout college and continue to play today. Sorry, what was your other question?
So like Gerard Piqué, I guess.
Oh,
so, you transitioned from striker to center back?
Yeah, maybe Jaap Stam.
All right, nice. Okay, little nice back reference there.
Yeah.
Okay, and then from a coaching perspective, you said you touched on coaching a little bit at Haverford and maybe a little bit at the youth game. Can you tell us maybe a little bit more about that? Maybe compare coaching college players to youth players.
Yeah, I think between the two, the college game is a lot different. And when I was coaching at Haverford, which is it's a really prestigious school. You were going after a certain type of of student athlete. Obviously, someone who's really academically, gifted and diligent, but also someone who's looking to play at a high level. It's pretty much comparable to like a Division III version of the Ivy League. So you're essentially going after the same type of player, someone who is very driven and very interested in their studies, but also someone who's going to take sports seriously. And it was a bit of a challenge at the time because Haverford was actually a rival of Franklin and Marshall, which is where I played, a conference rival. So it was a neat dynamic getting to coach against the team that I was very passionate about playing for. So that was very unique for the youth game. It's hard to say. There's so many different levels right now to youth soccer and so many different dimensions that, depending on which level you're coaching at, people take the game, I guess, at different levels of intensity. And some in my experience, some people are very, very focused on training and practicing and developing, whereas others may just see it more recreational and something that they're going to do in the fall, and then they're going to play basketball in the winter and baseball in the spring, or lacrosse. Having a multi-sport athlete as opposed to focusing solely on a single sport. Growing up.
Yeah, you're right. There's all kinds of different levels. I do want to touch back on, you're kind of working or, for a rival. And that's something I'm going to try my best to compare it. But so growing up, I went to high school, pretty good athletically. And so obviously, we had rival schools. And so when my wife and I got married, we bought a house outside of Philly in another school district. And so we don't have any kids or anything like that. But it always kind of like, not mess with me, but it was just something that, like, if we raised a family there, it'd be in a rival school district. So is there anything that you, I don't know, either did or anything that you had to like remind yourself of that, like, all right, that's, in the past, or anything that you did, when you came up against a Franklin and Marshall or anything like that?
That's not really my personality. Usually whatever I'm doing, I'm invested in trying to make it as successful as possible. There was definitely nostalgia going back to Lancaster and sitting in the same locker rooms, and obviously being on another bench from the coach that had coached me in college. All of that brought back a lot of emotion, but it wasn't ever something where there was a conflict of interest. It's once we got to the field and once I was coaching Haverford, I wanted those teams to win.
Got it. Makes sense. Yeah, I just figured it'd be interesting to just kind of ask where your perspective was on that. So currently, you touched on it. You work for Sofive Soccer Centers. Can you tell people a little bit about Sofive? So just kind of what is the company?
Sure. So Sofive it's a five-a-side soccer facility. So when I say five-a-side, it's just small-sided soccer. We play with the fields are designed to have a goalkeeper and then four field players. So on a court you'll have 10 players, and it's really modeled after games that are played in Europe and in South America, where you're in more of a confined setting, and it really promotes quick play. And thinking and reaction, but while also having more of a social component to it, as opposed to playing, 11 aside and needing 22 people to have a game. Here you can find 10 players, you hop on and you can just play. So for the youth game, I think that there is a lot of synergy with some of the new standards of play that are being put into place by U.S. Soccer with the advent of 4v4, 7v7, 9v9, where you're going to get more repetition and touches on the ball. All of our fields are are enclosed with rebound walls, so the ball never goes out of bounds, and it just promotes faster play and faster thought process, I think at the early ages it's very beneficial for for players to be in that environment, because if they can navigate tight quarters, you're going to see more people when they have larger space and room to play, being really proficient with the ball at their feet. And then on the adult side, it's almost the opposite. You're still getting a lot of touches on the ball, but depending on your level and your interest, it's not going to be as much running as a bigger field. You don't need to have a huge group to play. You can have those 10 buddies that are coming on a weekly basis, and you have a field each week, and you can just knock the ball around. So the game is really modeled to try to make the sport more accessible and more fun, and just to reach a wider audience. So we're located in Elkins Park, Pennsylvania, which is right outside of Philadelphia, in Montgomery County. And we have a total of 6 indoor fields. We have another 4 outdoor fields. But we're really interested in building a soccer community and a soccer-like atmosphere. We have TVs where the only thing that's allowed to be played on the TVs is soccer. And we are in the process of obtaining our liquor license so that people can come in, and on a Saturday they can turn on the Premier League and support their favorite team, and be surrounded by people that are like-minded and passionate about the game.
I love it. That's awesome to hear. And so you guys rent out to youth teams that can use the facility. You have, I think, adult rec leagues, and then you also have the pickup program, right?
Yep.
And so can you tell us maybe a little bit more, I guess specifically the pickup program, because that's something that seems really, really cool and interesting to me.
Yeah, so just going back to what I said about accessibility, one thing that and building community, one thing that we do 4 nights a week is we offer pickup games. So for $10, you can come in with a group, you could come in by yourself, and you can play for 2 hours. Teams are formed on the spot. So if you didn't come in with a team, you would find the 4 closest people to you, and you'd hop on a field, and we play to the first to 2 goals, or who's ever winning after 5 minutes. And it's just an opportunity to get to play against different people and to form relationships, while also finding the appropriate level of play, because the winners will hold their court. If you lose, you'll slide down a court, but eventually you'll wind up kind of where you're meant to be, and you'll be matched and paired with people accordingly.
Yeah, it's really cool. And so you touched on, coaching a little bit. And so how did you come to work for Sofive?
Okay. Well, when I was coaching, I began to find myself doing a lot of planning and coordination of programs, tournament operation, and I really I found my skill set was very aligned with managing a center like this, with the operations component, of overseeing and running leagues and preparing for tournaments, but also just the youth and adult soccer market. It is very relationship driven, and I had a lot of contacts within the area, and it really afforded me with the ability to come in and expose local clubs or maybe men's league teams to the center, and things just kind of took off from there.
And timeline, when was that?
So I started at Sofive in April of 2017. That's when the center was opened. The center was originally an indoor tennis center. And it's cool because it still has kind of a similar infrastructure, but everything has been modified to meet the needs of a soccer lover.
Yeah, that is really cool. This might be a really nerdy question, and so I don't know if listeners are going to be interested in this, but I'm going to ask it. In high school, you had to do a graduation project, and my graduation project was running and coordinating a soccer tournament that raised
Yep.
money for a charity. So I remember specifically making the schedule, and I did it by hand and making sure teams had breaks. There wasn't too long of a breaks, and making sure teams weren't playing at the same time, and all of that. Do you have like software that is specific to handling all of that? Like, how do you actually like manage tournament creation? You said that was kind of your background and league organization. What sort of software is out there? And I don't know, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so there's different software for facility management, and a lot of them will come equipped with programming that you can use and utilize to have schedules created for you, um, and just manage whatever other programming that you may be running in the center. If it's leagues, if it's the pickup that we're talking about, if it is birthday parties or events, but you'll be able to go in and you'll just be able to allocate a certain amount of time for whatever you have going on. And when it comes to tournaments, you can do the same thing. And there is sort of game creation built into a lot of the platforms. Now, that said, the tournaments that we run, because of the small-sided dimension and angle that we play, it's really not feasible to have the same length and duration of games that you may see on an 11-a-side match. So most of our tournaments are designed to play in like 18-minute blocks or 20-minute blocks. And we like to try to keep the tournaments moving quickly. So for our youth and adult tournaments, we'll rarely have a tournament that'll last more than 3 hours. And I think that's cool, because you can get in and out. If you're a parent, you can come and you can watch your team's games. One of the biggest things I hated when I was coaching and even as a player was, having to play a tournament where my first game might be at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then I'm not finishing my day until 5:50 just because of limitations with the number of teams that are participating and field availability. So we like to try to keep things concise and get people in and out and ensure that they have a good experience. So when it comes to scheduling in that manner, we have just different ways that we can use a certain amount of fields or schedule certain matchups to allow us to expedite the process, if that
Very
makes
cool.
sense.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Do you have any? You don't have to tell us the name of the software you use, or just more broadly other ones. Like, are there names of the software? Again, I'm just curious
Yeah,
about
so
that stuff.
there's a lot of centers will use something called Easy Facility. We happen to use a system called Dash. But then when it comes to youth soccer and tournaments, the preeminent platform that most teams are on is called Got Soccer. And Got Soccer has built into, ingeniously, they've built into their system rankings. So when it comes to youth tournaments, a lot of teams will compete to win points, and these points determine, what your state ranking, your regional ranking, and your national ranking will be. Certain tournaments are worth more points than other points, and that's the software that we use for our youth tournament scheduling.
Got it. Yeah, I remember. So my age, points weren't really factored in. I have
Yeah.
a younger brother, Matt, and I remember him always talking about points, and I understood it at a high level, but I didn't realize exactly how it tied into everything. And so it sounds like maybe, the software in this company maybe was the driving factor in that, because then that would qualify you for certain tournaments, correct?
Correct. And
Yeah.
it's controversial because you'll have teams that'll go out and they'll just compete in as many tournaments as they can in the interest of obtaining as many points as they can. And it isn't always a fair reflection of actually how strong a team is as opposed to how many tournaments that they can participate in, and the quality of the tournaments that they're playing in. And there's always been a conversation about whether or not teams should be training more than they should be playing games. And if you think of things in light of like a tournament being more like a test for a student, you're obviously going to want to study more and learn more so that you're prepared to play in the games. And I think my feeling is that the training aspect is always more important than actually going and competing in these tournaments where you could be playing, in 20 different games in a few weeks, so it really just all depends on what you're after. But that's also another reason why, our short games and the tournament structure that we have at Sofive is nice, because, within 3 hours, you'll play 4 games that are 18 minutes long, and it's in all reality the same length a full game might be.
Yeah, and the point system, again, is great in concept, but it lends itself to manipulation. I mean, Poland, manipulated the FIFA rankings and ended up getting seeded. So, I think everyone can find a way around certain things, and so nothing is ever perfect. But steering the conversation back to Sofive, so you are one of, I believe, 4 or 5 facilities. So I'd like to talk maybe a little bit more about just the company, overall. So you tell us about how that kind of got started. Where was the initial location, and how it's kind of been growing?
Sure. So the first location was in the Meadowlands, New Jersey, and um, they really built a big presence there with the youth soccer and the adult soccer that we discussed. And after a year, the owners decided they wanted to expand the center's presence across the East Coast and the region. And the Elkins Park location was the second center that opened. And as I mentioned, we've been open since April 2017. In that time, within the last year, we've expanded and added centers in Brooklyn, New York, Columbia, Maryland, as well as Rockville, Maryland. So the center is really taking off. We have a lot of exciting things that are happening at this center in particular. We have a former MLS player for the Philadelphia Union who just stepped on, who's going to be leading the charge for our youth leagues. His name's Richie Marquez.
Oh, yeah. I know Richie.
He was a center back for the Union for a while. And we just hired a new adult soccer manager, Kyle Grizzard, who is really experienced in this area and has done some coaching. So really excited about that. Yeah, and things are taking off. The center down in Rockville is being utilized really heavily by some of the local youth soccer markets down there. And obviously in Brooklyn, we're seeing a lot of positivity with just the adult soccer market, and that presence is very huge there.
So the growth kind of probably varies from location to location, specifically with how you target, marketing and what you're focusing on from a growth perspective. Is that a fair assessment?
Sure.
Yeah, and so maybe more the suburban locations would target maybe a little bit more towards youth clubs and trying to get partnerships there, whereas location in Brooklyn or in the urban settings might cater more towards the young adult population.
Yeah, that's fair. That's definitely fair to say. Yeah.
So what's it like? Again, it's so cool. Obviously, I have a passion for soccer, and Sofive is growing like crazy, and it must be a really exciting sort of place to be working at. What's it like working for a company that has all of this positive momentum and sort of growth behind it?
It's really cool. It's unlike anything I've ever seen. And it's cliche, but the game really is a unifier in the sense that it brings and forces different cultures to come together. And one of the I think my favorite parts of being at the center and having all of the different courts and fields that we have is that on any given night, you can be in here, and on one field you'll see a group of Jamaicans playing, and on another field you'll see a group of Brazilians playing, and on another field, there'll be guys from Mexico, and it's very nice to see how the game brings people together that way. And it's also very interesting to see culturally how the game is interpreted and performed and played, because different countries have different brands and styles of play, and that comes to light, and it's visible on any given night being in the center. And you just get to meet people that you wouldn't otherwise get to meet. And I've lived in Philadelphia my entire life, and before I started working here, there's different groups of people that I otherwise would have never encountered, and it's a privilege. a privilege to be a part of that.
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, the sport of soccer is awesome. The company that you're working for is fantastic as well. Can you give us, obviously, I'm sure there's things that you can't share because it's not public yet, but maybe just like a broad, what does the future hold for So5? You're kind of heavily based in the Northeast. Would it be more geographic expansion in that area? I would assume you're not going to get into other sports, but maybe you do in the future. I don't know if you're thinking about other service lines. How does So5, continue to grow? Anything you can share about what the future might hold?
Well, the about other sports, the other thing that I think differentiates and separates Sofive is it's soccer specific, and the vision of the company is one in which it'll never stray from that. It's soccer passionate people. It's for soccer fans, for soccer players, and I don't think that will ever change. As far as the future, it's hard. It's hard to say. I think that as long as we know that there's a market for this type of soccer and this type of environment, and as long as it continues to rise in popularity, I don't see any reason why we would continue to slow down. But yeah, I'm just really for the moment focused on growing the center here in Elkins Park and making it as lively as possible.
Very cool. Yeah. So I'm excited to continue following So5's journey. Last question on the So5 front, we had a Twitter user chime in, Sam Naji1. Sam, apologies if I mispronounced that. Does So5 offer any internships? I think this person might be in college, and so I said I would ask the question. They would treasure a summer internship at a facility like yours. What's the job situation at So5?
Always interested in meeting with people and talking to people. They can shoot me a resume at alex@sofive.com. But yeah, we're always looking for people who love the game and who are interested in working with the people that we have come inside and to play and to watch games.
All right, so there you have it. On the So5 front, I want to transition back to you a little bit. We were chatting before we went live. So teams you support from a soccer just fan perspective. So I know you said Liverpool. Is there any other teams that you support?
U.S. men's national team.
All right. So men's national team probably is pretty straightforward, but Liverpool, how'd you become a fan of that team?
FIFA growing up, probably, but yeah, I mean, I really think that the Champions League, beating AC Milan, that was really the first time that I fell in love with the team, and that probably sounds cliche too, but I really also just I think the "you'll never walk alone" whole mantra just it really rings true for a lot of things in my life, and that stuck with me. And yeah, I've been in love with the team since.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what solidified my fandom as well. I also like the color red, and Steven Gerrard had played center midfield, so I tried to, model my game after him. So those three things coming together is why I ultimately became a Liverpool fan as well. How are you feeling about their season? It's looking like they might come up short in the Champions League and Premier League. I'm still holding out hope, so maybe not. But how have you felt about their season?
It's just been awesome to watch, and it would be gutting not to lift a trophy this year. But they've really, I think that they've really made the league and the Champions League just really, really fun and exciting to watch on a week to week basis. And the fact that it's going to be coming down to the last week, the Premier League, is just like, what more do you want? Obviously, it would stink for them not to win, but they just play a really exciting brand of soccer, and they have some really cool personalities on the team that have just made it fun.
Yeah. So how do you watch the game? Do you have a ritual? Do you always watch in a certain place? Does your job, force you to be, in the facility, so you're watching there, or is it just kind of wherever you are, you try to watch as much as possible?
Yeah, unfortunately, I've been watching a lot of the games on DVR these days, but just because my mornings are usually pretty hectic. But when I can, I like to watch at home on my sofa, um, just and be comfortable. But there are occasions where Boxing Day will go out with a bunch of buddies every year, and we'll watch all the games, and that's just kind of a fun tradition that we have. But I just try to take in the games however I can.
Very cool. And what do you think Liverpool needs to do in the summertime? How are you feeling about their future? Do you think what types of players or what specific players do you think they need to sign in the offseason? Put your manager hat on and what do they need?
They have a great core. I don't think that they need to change too much. Maybe just some more depth up top. I think that when Firmino, he's been missing these last few weeks, and he's a hard guy to replace. But when they slid Mane into the 9 role, I just don't know if the team was as effective. I think that the midfield's been tremendous all year, and they've demonstrated they have a lot of depth there. Re-signing Jimmy Milner would probably be something I'd like to see. And with Oxlade-Chamberlain coming back into the fold, that should be a nice addition. But I think that they've done a pretty good job the last few years in getting Van Dijk and Alisson and Keita and Fabinho in these last few transfer windows to make a formidable team.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I think just depth up top and specifically at left back, Robertson has just been so massive for them. Yeah. And Moreno's likely moving on this summer. And if Robertson were to go down, that would be a huge drop off. So that would probably be the other area that I think they need to target. And you're spot on with Ox coming back. I feel like he's almost like a new signing to a certain extent. So I'm really, really bullish about this team's prospects moving forward. And in fairness, we are recording before the Champions League final. So when listeners are hearing this, maybe they had a miraculous comeback and they might be on the way to a trophy, but we'll see what happens. Alex, is there anything I didn't ask before I ask my final question here that you wanted to talk about?
No, I don't think so. I agree with you. Robertson's been a great surprise, as has Alexander-Arnold. So it's an exciting team, and if you listen to Pep Guardiola, he said that this Liverpool team has been one of the most difficult teams he's ever had to coach against.
Yeah, we talked about that on the podcast this weekend. He said it was the second best team he's ever coached against, and upon initially hearing that, you think, well, that can't be possible. But when you really start running down and just how talented this team really is, and how just their starting 11 is solid when they have all of their players. I mean, you could legitimately say that this is one of the top few. I still think maybe a couple of those Real Madrid teams that he faced might have been stronger, but this Liverpool team is awesome. And the other thing we didn't touch on is that they have a really strong youth academy, and a lot of players are out on loan. Maybe some of those players break through, a la Trent Alexander-Arnold as well. And so it's a fantastic time to be a Liverpool fan. So I'm super excited. The question we ask all our interview guests, we love to leave this on a positive note, feel good. So what's the thing you're most excited about happening in your soccer world? You can take it any direction you want. It can be personal, it can be fan, it can be Sofive. What's the thing you're most excited about happening in your soccer world?
In my personal soccer world?
Your personal, Sofive, whatever however you want to take it, what's the thing you're most excited about happening?
I think it would be really cool for the U.S. to host the World Cup again. In what is it, 2026?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that would be awesome. And I think that would be just a tremendous boom for the sport in the country. I think the Women's World Cup this summer is huge. That's something that I'm really excited for, that they have a great team. And they have, like we just talked about, personalities. They have a lot of fun personalities that I like to support. And I think it's also critical for the growth of the sport in the country, for them to be successful and for the country to support them. So that's exciting. But yeah, I mean, I think those are two things that I'm excited about. The Gold Cup coming up will be cool. I just, I love soccer. The more we can watch it, the more that the country can get behind it. And I think that the U.S. Soccer Foundation is doing a nice job too with starting to build more inner city courts and making the game more accessible across the country. They're doing some cool stuff down in DC. The JT Dorsey Foundation and EPYSA, Eastern Pennsylvania Youth Soccer, they're doing a lot of cool initiatives with Soccer for Success and getting inner city kids playing more. And I'm excited by that. I think that can only help the game, and you know, yeah, there's a lot of promise. There's a lot of promise happening right now.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm sorry, that was kind of a scattered response, but there's a
No,
lot of cool stuff going on.
yeah, no worries at all. A lot of people have said, the World Cup's coming up or things that they're excited about. And it's just an awesome time to be supporting soccer, following soccer in this country. There's so much positive momentum for it and so much of the foundations being laid for future success. So you guys Sofive's definitely playing a role in that. And then, just this summer is going to be awesome with, the Gold Cup, Copa America, and Women's World Cup going to be on TV pretty much. Soccer's going to be on TV pretty much all day. So I'm super excited about that as well. We have all of Sofive's website, Instagram, and Facebook. We have the Elkins Park ones linked in the video description and podcast show notes. But in case people are just listening, where can people find Sofive?
Perfect. Thank you.
Alex, where can people? That wasn't
www.sofive.com.
All right, there you go. That was a terrible prompt on my part.
No, I just wasn't doing a very good job responding.
My apologies there. But Alex, thank you so much for joining me today and talking with me.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Thanks, Dave.
All right, cool. So people that are watching this video, thank you for joining us. So this will be cut from the podcast, but because it's not going to be relevant because the podcast will be released after. But Alex, Mario joined us live on YouTube. He asked for predicted lineup for Liverpool against Barcelona. Do you want to take a shot at throwing out our lineup predictions?
All right, Allison in goal.
Yep.
What do we got? Van Dijk and Matic?
Matip, yep.
Yep. Robertson. Joe Gomez starting, or do they have Trent playing?
I would think they have to have Trent because he's more attacking. So I would say Trent and Robertson as the backs.
Yeah, I'll go with those two.
All right.
We got Jordan Henderson.
Agreed.
Chiata.
He's out for the rest of the season.
Sorry, Fabinho will be playing there, and then is Wijnaldum starting?
I would so he's just asking us what we want to have happen. So probably I think Wijnaldum's got to be in there. So I think it's got to be
starting. And then Salah and Firmino are both hurt, right?
Yep.
So Origi, Mane. Or does Jimmy Milner start in the midfield and you have Wijnaldum go up top?
I think they need to go more attacking. So I think it was probably Shaqiri along with Origi and Mane. Yeah, they need 3 goals. So that's what we're expecting, Mario. Hopefully they can bounce back and have a miraculous comeback a la Istanbul when we both became fans, as we mentioned earlier. But we'll see what happens.
Shaqiri was a great signing this year too. He had a spectacular start to the season, and he played a giant role in that run. And a lot of people didn't like it or didn't agree with the signing initially.
Which didn't make sense to me because it was so low risk, especially in today's modern world. They paid £13 million for a player of his quality. I mean, you can't get anybody for that. And they got Robertson for £6 million. So he was an absolute steal. But in today's game, getting a player of Shaqiri's quality for £13 million, even if he didn't play very much, would have been a fantastic signing. So I don't know why people were questioning that, to be honest. But yeah. So Mario, that's what we think is going to happen. Alex, any final words before we close out here?
No, just thank you. I love what you guys are doing with the podcast, and I thank you again for having me.
Of course, yeah. Thank you so much for joining us, and this will be out as a podcast tomorrow. Everyone who's watching, and so that would be May 8th. And yeah, we'll talk to you soon. See you, everybody.